political party, isn't there, on this issue?
You mean sanctions?
Yes.
Sanction, actually, we didn't, they call for the sanction. Of course, in 1988, at that time, that the regime very, brutality, and then we have no weapon to resist that the regime brutality. At that time, of course, we did it. But nowadays, then, we really wanted to look at it that the sanctions is really affecting the people or really affecting the government. Because, we are also, my personal feeling is that the regime is that, the regime is trying to scapegoat the sanction as that the best weapon to protect their failed state. And then the failed, the economic failure and other social failure, etc. In that case, that she's willing to work with the sanctions and how she could, assist the regime. That's why the last year she met with the Western diplomats at in Rangoon, and then to listen. She also liked to listen that what the other, even the Western sanction, the other ASEAN country like Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, and then of course, China and in India. So, she also needs to meet with those, neighboring countries, the leaders or the representative, and then how people, the neighboring, the interest, and then how the Western interest. She's not that, a person to oppose the sanction. She's willing to work for the people because today she saw that how people are suffering. So if sanction lifted and the next day all the foreign direct investment would be coming in, we're really glad that we appreciate it. But the problem is that the policy matter, economic policy matter is that major hurdle for the foreign direct investment.
Larry Jagan, the lady, and that's how she's known in Burma, is clearly revered. We've seen those pictures in recent hours and in the last 48 hours. But how relevant is she still? And has the world moved on a little since she's been under house arrest?
Well, undoubtedly the world has moved on since she's been under house arrest, and I think that's one of the reasons why she's prepared to discuss the issue of sanctions. She sees, I think, that this is divisive rather than cohesive, and it's divided Asia and the West, and given that Asia are neighbours of Burma, and if she ever took over power in Burma, she would have to deal with these neighbours, and she would not want to be on the other side and in the enemy camp. So she sees that there needs to be a way in which she can overcome this. I think that in terms of her relevance, it's quite clear, given the pictures that we've been getting from Rangoon, perhaps as many as 40,000 people out on the streets of Rangoon today for supporting her. When I was there in 2002, when she was released the last time, there was far less than that. There was only a couple of thousand. I think that the isolation that she's been under has actually increased her position. I think the fact that the National League for Democracy, under her leadership, took a position to boycott the elections and said they were going to be unfree and unfair, when many people were suggesting, well, look, give them a chance. They were proved right because the military regime has manipulated those elections in a way that I don't think anyone could have anticipated.
Well, I'd like to examine the motives of that military regime now. And if I can ask Justin Wintle, why have they decided to release her now? Why they decided to have a new constitution, new elections? Is this a military junta running out of steam, or do they feel that they're in a very strong, confident position?
It's certainly not a regime which is running out of steam. If you look at all the efforts they've made over the last few years to shore up their power, the new constitution and these elections. I mean, what we've got to recall is these elections were not just to a National Assembly. They were in all, they were to 16 elections. 16 assemblies, one in each of the provincial states, as they're called in Burma, as well as a bicameral two-house National Assembly. So I don't think that the regime is stuck for answers. I don't think it is running out of steam at all. Why they released Suu Kyi is a bit of a conundrum, really. I mean, on the one hand, these are army men who have kept her in confinement. They issued an order, and it is the habit of disciplined military soldiers to follow orders through, and the house arrest expired on Saturday yesterday, so in a way it's natural that it should have come to an end. On the other hand, they obviously had the option of extending house arrest, as they've done many times before. They may be doing this as, you know, as a sop, not so much to the West or the so-called international community, as to the more immediate neighbours, the component states of ASEAN, the association, Association of Southeast Asian Nations.
Neo Mint, sorry, just Neo Mint, what's your... okay, quickly, yep.
What I'd like to do is just to continue this thing. There may have been some arm twisting, perhaps by one or two of the ASEAN states, which we don't know about. The problem is the generals never explain their actions. They never explain why they do what they do.
Okay, Neo Mint, what's your take on that? Why has she been let out now?
That's going to be a few things that my opinion. The number one is that they wanted to cover up the sham election on November 7. So when she was free on Saturday, and then people thought that, okay, then people forget about the elections, and international, you know, embrace the regime that she was finally free, or, you know, that's a special award or Christmas present for the international community. And then the second thing is that within the military, I don't think the senior Than Shwe is very comfortable with that the generals who forced to retire, and then they are quite a bit unhappy right now. So then the third one is that the ceasefire groups and ethnic nationality armed forces, they are right now, that's in the very high, you know, tension between the ethnic and then the Burmese army at that point. So then they really need to ceasefire with that the Aung San Suu Kyi and NLD. So that's why they were supposed to free her, but, you know, they just wanted to get a credit on that part.
Gentlemen, the difficult part comes now, because I'm going to ask you to look in your crystal balls. Larry Jagan, how do you see the coming days, weeks and months playing out, and what are the key landmarks coming up?
Well, I think the next few days are going to be critical. To what extent is Aung San Suu Kyi going to keep the kind of pattern that she's already set, one of conciliation, one of offer of talks and national reconciliation? I think one has to remember that one of the reasons that she's been released is that there are probably differences within the military regime. They're not as convinced or as monolithic as one would imagine, and some of the younger officers who are now regional commanders and senior officers are not entirely happy with the way in which the election was run and with the way in which Than Shwe has been running the military. So they may well be prepared to offer an olive branch to Aung San Suu Kyi. The big problem is, how is Than Shwe going to act? She's tried this in the past, and what we found is that he's ignored it. My fear is that this time, because of the farce of the elections, because of the popular support of Aung San Suu Kyi, if Than Shwe and the military regime do not respond to her conciliatory offers, it's going to lead to demonstrations in the streets, and I fear that actually it may well end in bloodshed. And I know that this is something that Aung San Suu Kyi would not want. When I last spoke to her, she said, I cannot have the blood on my conscience, I cannot allow people to be killed in the same way that they were in 1988.
Neo Mint, can I ask you the same question? How do you see things playing out? Do you fear there'll be bloodshed, or are you confident about the future of your country?
It's a very, you know, quite difficult time for us to say that from the outside of Burma, because, you know, right now the momentum is very high. People, it's a, you know, because, you know, we know that I'm a Burmese, and I know that the Burmese, you know, the mentality, and then people are right now very frustrated. Their frustration needs some outlet. So, you know, that's why, as Larry said that a while ago, that in 40,000 today they came to see her. It's quite a bit tremendous. And then the Burmese people, the emotional, and then also frustration, economic situation, and then, you know, the whole people has been treated a really bad situation, and then that point. So people wanted to get out from this situation. People really need to change. So
Thank you, then.
But I hopefully that, yeah.
Thanks to our guests in Bangkok, Larry Jagan, in Kuala Lumpur, Neo Mint, and in London, Justin Wintle. And thank you so much for joining us here on this edition of Inside Story. We welcome your comments and suggestions. Please email them to us at insidestory@aljazeera.net. I'll read them all before we see you in 24 hours' time. Bye-bye for now.